this sort of thing actually, but
yeah, and then
we're broadcasting now.
Broadcasting and recording.
And recording. So what happens now? People just tune in and
they'll just tune in.
Does it tell us that they're tuning in?
No, it'll just. I assume it'll just sort of bring people up.
So let people put the link. That's nice. We've got a sleeping dog. This is not upside down at the moment.
For a couple of minutes, and just chat.
Yes. Yeah. So sorry, you were saying about the cacti. Obviously, you don't mind.
Yeah, there was a husband's project, the cacti. So yeah, I'm not sure about them actually, but each to their own. But this is the best. You see, this is the window that gets all the weather. This gets all the sun all day long. So it's a bit cool first thing, but it gets really warm. Which the blinds have been useful actually with me working. But yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, we've got some.
Sorry, Chris, go on.
I was just saying we've got cacti just over there near the big yucca tree. We've got a massive row of them. And then we've got them. So so we're a massive fan of having plants in the environment we want to work in. So I think. Yeah.
So you're back. Have you worked in the office all the way through?
Yeah, we've been going since day one. Cause we own the building we're in, you see. So we live at the top of the building in Benrinning. But we've got the shop, which is an old Victorian parade of shops, so just where the light's shining through. So there's a parade of shops there. And then, that's it. So we also got blessing and the curse being here all the time, but it's easier for us to keep going.
Yeah. Well, I must admit, I'm looking forward to going back to my office, just especially for things like this, or I've got some videos to record for the membership club. And again, it's a nice clean blue wall. So video in that type of environment will be a lot better.
There we go. I can see people are dropping in now.
Oh, yeah. It's gone up to 10.
See that? Yeah, up to 10. So people just jumped in. So maybe give them another minute and then we'll do it, crack on with the formalities and then we go.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Is it the first event?
It is, yeah. So you're the first one, the very first one.
Okay.
So I'm excited. Cool. Right. So I suppose we'll kick off. Thank you very much to the participants who joined and attendees. This is, as you just hopefully picked up on there, the very first webinar for the Digital U event of 2020. In previous years, last 2 years, it has been in real life, but for obvious reasons, we've had to pivot and change the way we've done the conference, and we've pulled together our experts of colleagues, connections, people we know who can really add value to help businesses and people transition into the digital age. That's the premise of why we're here this week. I'm Chris Morris from Shoe Social Media, the founder and co-founder of Shoe and Digital U. So I'll introduce you to our speaker, Deborah Ogden, today, who is a personal branding expert, a national respected speaker. There's a lot across the country, and even the bit I didn't know, she actually has her own business podcast. She's going to talk to you today all about everything to try and help you. Not everything, not enough time for that. All about personal branding. So I'm going to hand you over to Deborah Ogden now. If you've got any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat. We'll have a Q&A at the end after the presentation to answer the best questions. Housekeeping, I'm going to drop a link into the chat as well for those people who haven't managed to pick up the ebook. There is an ebook to go inside with every webinar this week. And I think that's pretty much it from me. I'm going to hand you over. Okay. Thank you, Deborah.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Oh, we've just gone into afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. And really interesting, actually, talking about that word pivot, and that word keeps coming up, and adapting. And I'm actually celebrating 10 years in business this week. And I think things have changed more in the last 10 weeks than they had in the previous 10 years, how things have changed, and we're having to adapt with it. And certainly when I set out 10 years ago, nobody knew what personal branding was. And these days, people tend to have an understanding of it. And today I want to look at talking to you about personal branding and impact, but online, this 2020 visibility, and how we've had to adapt our personal brand, our visibility, to really embrace the situation that we're in. So what I'm going to share with you is what personal branding is, just very briefly, just so that you understand where I'm coming from, because there can be different takes on it, why it's important, and then really sharing some tools and techniques on how you can make sure that you're making the best of your personal brand in the current circumstances, and the tweaks and the changes that we're having to make in this very different world that we were in 3 months ago. So just very quickly, personal branding, the best summing up for me comes from Jeff Bezos. Your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So just let that sink in for a moment and think, what would people say about you? How would they describe you? So when somebody mentions your name, what words come to mind? And the crucial question here is, are those the words that you want them to be? So I've been, one of the things that I've done to pivot is to launch a membership club. And I was talking in my membership group this morning about self-awareness, because you have a personal brand that's going on in your head, but you have the personal brand that's out there. And it's that perception that is absolutely key. So why is this important? Well, you know, particularly at the moment, we need to be visible and we need to stay visible. And it's really interesting, sort of when we first went into lockdown, I was saying to people, you need to stay visible at the moment. You need people to remember who you are, and that people are being kinder at the moment. You know, you can see probably from the background that I'm broadcasting from what was the back bedroom that is now the makeshift office. And we're all getting a glimpse into people's, a little bit more about the people that we're listening to. And this is all about building trust and really making connections with people. Because in times of trouble, in times of uncertainty, we turn to brands that we trust. And therefore, people really need to connect with you. And I want you to bear that in mind as we go through this next half hour, next 20 minutes or so, thinking about building content and sharing and communicating content that people buy into so they trust you. Because the ultimate thing is, you want to be the front of mind person when whoever your audience want to buy what it is that you sell. So that might be a product, that might be a service, but whenever they are looking to buy what it is, so it might be that somebody wants to step up in business, step up in their role. And I would hope that people would say, oh yes, Deborah can help me do that. It might be that you need social media training and marketing support. Shoe Media are exactly who it is that come to mind. Rachel and Chris's names are there imprinted in your mind, and you know what they do, but crucially, you know how they do it. And it's what they bring that's different to all the other social media people out there. Because it isn't just about the what, it's the how and the who you are. So this is about knowing your personality as well. So that's having clarity. You need to have clarity on your personal brand. And we're going to look at this in a little bit deeper, more detail, but clarity on your message and clarity on who your audience are. So I talk about 3 C's. This is my method that I use. You need clarity, you need to communicate that effectively, and then you need to capitalize on that. And that's the visibility piece. That's where you get yourself on different platforms. That's where you use podcasting. That's where you use Zoom calls, whatever it may be, to really build on your message. So those are the 3 areas we're going to look at: clarity, communication, and capitalizing. Okay, so just one thing that I started to say there, that you know, is it 3 months now, 10 weeks? I'm losing track of time. I can see Chris nodding here, but when we started out, I was saying to people that this is a temporary thing. And actually, I think we all realise now that we're not going back to where we were. And therefore, this is about adapting, but this is about embracing the situation as well. And if you are somebody who's not particularly comfortable on Zoom, you're not particularly comfortable about video, posting video content, you're not comfortable about posting content on social media, then this is the time to really embrace this. I don't think there's any excuse anymore. I really truly believe actually that, you know, it's critical that you embrace these skills, and it's about a different mindset. We were laughing over the weekend. I have a 12-year-old son, and the absolute godsend for us over lockdown has been his Xbox. Now, I never thought this would be the case, but actually that's his way of communicating with his friends. And for me, it was a change in mindset of, oh, this is a gaming tool. This is something that he spends his time on, as in, wow, this is a way of keeping in touch with his school friends. And actually, from a mental well-being point of view, it is something he can use. So I think it's just having a step back and reflecting and thinking, how can I use these tools to benefit me, to benefit my business, and actually not to try and look at how we can deliver what we delivered before, but deliver something even better through the tools that we have. So that's pivoting, that word again, adapting your business and embracing the tools so that you can really make an impact for your audience in a way that will put you in pole position when we get to the new normal. So I've talked about clarity now. I think most of you have got a copy of the wheel of visibility that I'm holding up here. And if you haven't, it's not a problem. But if you can see that, what we're going to do is just work through this wheel for the next few minutes and look at different areas. And really, I would like you to focus on these areas and think about the areas that you have strengths and the areas that perhaps you need to work on a little bit more. And this should cover the whole shebang, if you like. And if I asked you to do all of this all at once, it would be overwhelming. So what I want you to do is pick out certain areas where you feel you perhaps need to focus a little more attention, and then once you've worked on that, move on to the next. So hopefully everybody's okay with that. And I'm going to start first of all with clarity of personal brand. And as I go through each of these segments of the pizza, I'd like you to mark yourself marks out of 10. So nobody should have 10 out of 10. I've worked, as I've said to you, I've done this for 10 years. I work on it day in, day out. I don't give myself 10 out of 10 in each of these sections. This is dynamic. We can always be learning. We can always be growing. We can always do better. So I want you to think about your clarity of personal brand. Before you even get online, before you switch the camera on, before you put yourself out there as a thought leader, what message do you want to share with people? So who are you? What are your values? Who do you want to show up as? What are those key words that you want people to think when they hear your name? And then you have your personal brand, and then you have that clarity, you can start to communicate that. So that's some work that you need to do. This takes time, this takes some self-reflection. And I know from a lot of my clients, and I think this comes back to that phrase that I heard in the media, that we're all in the same boat. No, we're not. We're all weathering the same storm, but we're all in different vessels. So I know from my HR clients and my accountancy clients that they've never been busier, but then there are some people that may have been furloughed or maybe have had slacker time, that have been able to step back and reflect and think, actually there are some things that I've learned during this period of time that I want to make sure I take forward, and they are part of your personal brand. So that's part of that message that you will be communicating. Okay, so clarity of personal brand, but also clarity of your audience. So I'm not quite taking these in order, but you can follow me around. So do you have clarity on who your audience are, who your key people are, and where do they hang out online, digitally? So what platforms are they on? Are they listening to podcasts? I mean, podcasts was a whole new world for me when I launched my podcast back in December. But I can honestly say it is the best thing I have ever done. The audience reach has been superb. I've met new people. It got my business in front of people that, you know, I probably wouldn't have done in other ways. But it's been a lovely way of being able to share my work through other people, my guest stories, to really bring it to life rather than talking about the tools and techniques. Really tell stories. And of course, we all love stories. So my first challenge to you is to tell stories online. Don't give facts and figures, tell stories, because we all remember when we were tucked up in bed when we were little, when people said, like, I'm going to tell you a story, we all relax and we retain the colour, the excitement, the energy, the emotion that comes with a story. So that's my first top tip. But know where your audience are. So whether they are hanging out on Twitter, are they on Instagram, are they on Facebook Lives, are they on LinkedIn? And I know there are going to be a number of seminars over the next week talking specifically about those different platforms, but you need to know where your audience hang out. You need to have that clarity. Okay, and then I've got goals down there. Why are you doing this? And any social media person or marketeer will tell you exactly the same. What is your outcome for being on social media, whatever platform it is? So I would argue that if you're looking at your personal brand, your outcome is to be that front of mind person. You want to be the go-to expert in your field, and you've got to own that. You've got to believe you're the expert. This comes on to the confidence segment of the pie. You've got to own that and believe that you're the expert, because if not, nobody else will believe you. So you've got to show up consistently and with confidence. So how confident are you in portraying your message? So give yourself a mark out of 10 there. An interesting thing with confidence, people tend to think you're either born confident, but actually confidence can ebb and flow. So you can, this is again that growth mindset of finding ways to build your confidence. And Amy Cuddy is an expert on presence. She talks about bringing your most confident self to life's challenges. And she talks about having power over yourself rather than having power over other people. So when you pitch up on a Zoom webinar or you pitch up on a Zoom call, which many of us are having to do now, you need to pitch up and be present. Because if you're present and 100% in the moment, you're not worrying how you come across yourself, you're able to deliver your message with power and impact. So think about your confidence. And then the next one I've mentioned there is consistency. So you need to have consistency of brand. So if you think, I always use Coca-Cola. I know that Chris and Rachel are in Ilkley at the moment. So if they were to trot along to the Marks and Spencers in Ilkley and buy a Coca-Cola, they know what they're going to get. But if you were tuning in from New York and went to your corner store, you know that wherever you are in the world, Coca-Cola will be exactly the same. We know what we're going to get. And if you love Coca-Cola, you're not going to go to Pepsi. You're going to stick with Coca-Cola. And that's what we want with our personal brand. People know what they're going to get when they work with you. And if they buy into that, they will be advocates of yours for life. They won't just be clients, they will be advocates. They'll be cheerleaders. They'll be telling other people how good you are, and they will refer other people to you. And if you have the clarity of brand, they will refer the right people to you because they know what your personal brand message is as well. They'll be the right type of referrals. So it's about that consistency of brand, but also when it comes to the digital world, it's about consistently showing up. And I'm sure you will hear this a number of times this week from other social media people saying that you need to show up consistently, because if not, you will lose that impact. And you need to make sure that that message, yes, it might be different stories, it might be a different angle, but that you keep on message. So people often ask me about Instagram, whether they should have a personal profile as well as a business profile. Well, that's absolutely fine, but keep your message to your personal brand message. So I might post about something I've done with the family at the weekend, but my family and my son and my husband are very much part of my personal brand. I might say that I'm having a lovely cup of coffee somewhere, because having a coffee is something that is, coffee, I'm a huge coffee lover, so that's something I talk about a lot. So again, it's part of who I am. I wouldn't post what I'm having for my lunch, because I don't think that's particularly relevant to my personal brand and particularly interesting, actually. So let's move on. Your profiles. If you are in a period where you are having some quieter time at the moment, I would say to you, look at your profiles, reflect on your profiles, and look at your photographs. Is your photograph communicating your personal brand as you want it to be? I worked with a great guy a few years ago who's a recruitment consultant, and he said to me, I want to change the face of the opinion of how people see recruitment consultants. He said, everybody assumes we're always in the bar with a glass of champagne and we're always networking, and they don't take us seriously. They think we're a bit flash. So I said, fine, okay, we can do that. These are your key messages. And I went on to his LinkedIn profile, and his LinkedIn photograph showed him on a balcony on holiday with mirrored sunglasses and a glass of champagne in his hand. What is he communicating? Everything that he doesn't want people to see. So have a look. I know that's an extreme example, but have a look at your photograph. Make your profile compelling. Show your personality. Show emotion in there. Make people buy into you as a person rather than just the services that you offer. Because it's about, you'll have heard the phrase, people buy people, but they buy into you. They're buying into your personality. So look at your profiles, that consistency word again. Make sure that you're telling the same story across all platforms, and make sure that they're interesting. Would you want to buy from you? Okay, so give yourself a mark out of 10 on that. I think that's probably one of the easiest ones to start working on, actually. And then your online presence and presenting online. I'm going to deal with these both together here, because I don't know about you, but in the last 10 weeks, I've done more Zoom calls than I have in the last 10 years. And the other thing is, they are exhausting. And the reason behind that is because when you walk into a room, when you present online, when you are one-to-one with somebody, you are able to communicate your body language and your energy very easily. And we don't have to work hard at reading that from the other person. But Chris and I were talking about this before we even came on air today, that through Zoom and through a screen, you really have to work hard to pick up that body language. Also, sometimes there's the distraction of seeing yourself on screen, which can be very off-putting. And there are ways to hide that quite often. If you're in speaker view, you can press the 3 dots and remove yourself off the screen. But I just want to share some sort of quick I can't even say it, put my teeth in, some quick techniques and tips on presenting online. And my first one will be smile. And I know that sounds obvious, but what everybody forgets to do when they are presenting, because they're nervous or they're thinking in their head about what have I got to share, they forget to smile. And that puts you at rest because it turns on your positive hormones, but it also puts the audience at rest. They want you to do well. So smile, and remember to smile, and remember to try and look at the camera. Now, this is the biggest challenge, and I saw a great tip on LinkedIn last week to take a post-it note and punch a hole in it with a hole puncher, and place that over the camera on your laptop or on your PC, and put a big arrow pointing to the hole. And I would add to that and put smile on there as well, so you've got that tip to remind you to look into the camera, look people in the eye, and really smile. Now, just while we're talking about cameras, and this is if you're presenting, but also if you're in an online meeting as well and you want true presence. My husband's a broadcaster, and a tip that he told me is not to present to the camera. I want you to present through the camera. Now, think about Alice in Wonderland. She didn't the magic didn't happen at the looking glass. It happened when she went through the looking glass. And what we want to do is project our energy into the camera and through the camera so that our audience can really pick up on that energy, because it's the energy of people that we buy into. It's their emotion, and that's where the presence is. So think about really projecting through the camera rather than at the camera, and that will just give you that little bit more presence to your audience. Another tip is to truly listen. Now, how many times, and I can't see everybody on this webinar, so you're being let off today, but how many times have you been on a webinar and you can see people checking their phones while they're on the webinar, or they're checking their email? Now, hopefully you wouldn't do that if you were in a meeting in person. Please, I hope you wouldn't. But how many times do we do it online because we can't quite be seen the same? But to be truly present, you have to be in the moment, and you have to get rid of all those distractions. And when you're listening and truly listening to people, what allows that allows you to do is hear what they're saying, and therefore you respond in a better way, because you're tuning into what their true concerns are, what their true challenges are, what they're really saying, not just the words, but you're hearing their key messages. And then you can adapt your message to them and really be succinct and have impact. Okay. Another thing, just very quickly, is if you're going on to present online, I would recommend that just for 5 minutes beforehand, you walk away from your screen and just go and get your energy elsewhere. Now, if you're somebody who's working from home at the moment and the weather's been lovely, then it might be you just go and have 5 minutes in the garden, take some deep breaths and come back. Don't check your emails, because you get what you call screen face, which is that sort of slightly zombied, zoned out face. So just by going, getting some fresh air and really breathing deeply, you will oxygenate yourself. And also by oxygenating and really opening up your body, so when you sit down at your webinar, whether you're in a meeting or you're presenting, another great acronym, and I have to make sure I get this right, is FOFBOC. Feet on floor, bum on chair. Okay, and really sit and put some backbone into it. Really put your body into it so that you look like you're alert, you look like you're present, rather than how many people do you see slumping in their chair and they lose their presence. So Chris has just disappeared off the screen on my view. I don't know if you can see him. But really put your backbone into it, because that gives you that presence. It means that you have that impact on your audience. So, and also by opening up your body, you're oxygenating your voice, which gives you more impact as well. So finally, I'm just thinking through my top tips. I think I've covered everything there, but just think about your voice as well, because again, in person we communicate so much more by our body language, but vocally it can be really quite challenging to break in to a meeting online. It can be challenging enough if you're in a boardroom or a meeting room and you've got to break into the conversation and have your voice heard, but online that can be even more challenging. So what I suggest you do is you commit. Another C. So we've talked about clarity, communicate, capitalize. This is about committing, and commit with confidence. So I want you to think about if you were sat at a road junction. Now I live just on a close off a local road which has a high school on it. So when I go down to the main road in the morning, I can sometimes sit there, and some of you will probably have a similar experience. I can sometimes sit there for about 5 minutes. And if you get what I call a ditherer in front of me that sits there and they're waiting for the traffic to stop, I'm tearing my hair out and I'm thinking, come on, commit. So you can't dither when it comes into breaking into a conversation online. You've got to have confidence in what you've got to say, and you have to commit with respect. So, you know, I'm the queen of thank you. Thank you, as I'm committing into the traffic, but commit with confidence and smile and be polite, but deliver what it is you have to say with true impact. Don't question yourself, because that will come out in your voice. Okay, so we've talked about clarity. You need clarity of message. You need to know who your audience are. You need to communicate consistently with confidence across all the platforms, and you need to capitalize. You need to look for opportunities to be seen as a thought leader. So be a guest on podcasts, start your own podcast, get your video content out there on LinkedIn. Make sure that you are committing consistently to show up and be visible for your audience, because when we do come through this, I know we need to be in pole position, and we need people to know exactly what we do, how we do it, and where to find us. So good luck with it, everybody. Any questions? I haven't seen any. I have been glancing at the chat. I haven't seen any come up, but if anybody has got any questions, happy to answer them now.
I'm not sure if whether it's just the technical aspect or people haven't genuinely asked any questions. So I will ask some in the meantime. Maybe make lots of notes. Thank you very much for that. Made a note there. So this will go on my camera after this one. Thank you. Quick observation for me. I naturally did this before we went on to the call when we were doing a technical setup. I made a cup of tea to get that, take that breather, to get my energy to come back, to come and sit down. So I thought that was a really useful reminder to those people that don't do it, just to get that sense of energy. Go and stroke the dog, just do something a little bit different. So thanks. That's probably my biggest thing. And then obviously the smile one. You don't often realise how often that is. Question I had, Deborah, could you recommend a kind of any starting point for people that are looking to work on their key messages? What would be a good starter?
So you really need, this needs some inner work. So a lot of people think personal branding is about that Instagram, that curated, fake it till you make it, facade that we put up. But for me, your personal brand starts with some inner work and some reflection. So you need to think about your values. You need to know what your mission is in life, what your purpose is. Why did you set up your business? If you're working within an organization, what are your goals? What are your outcomes? What motivates you? And when I'm working with people, we cover all these areas so that you pull it all together. You look at your experience as well. A lot of people think that it's just the experience that they're working with at the moment, but I started off life as a solicitor, as a lawyer. I've worked in the media, and these are all parts of who I am now, and actually the strengths that I bring to my business. So, even if you were in the Scouts or the Brownies when you were, way back when, you'll have learned team building skills. How many people have learned resilience over the last 10 weeks? How many have learned that, I've learned that I'm not cut out to be a teacher, but how many of us have learned, homeschooling skills? So really take that time to reflect and think about what it is that you bring that is different to other people, and, really work on that so that you have confidence in articulating that to people so that they know what they're going to get when they get you. And then I would say don't overcommit, because you want that consistency. So don't commit to show up every day. I mean, one of the great heroes of this last 10 weeks has been Joe Wicks, committing every single day. I think he's done 70 plus workouts. Wow, I wonder if he thought about that when he set off. Whereas you might just commit to do once a week and have that consistency so people know that you're going to show up for them.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of useful tips there. I bet Joe Wicks is a little bit tired. Yeah. What about, I suppose, any further reading, or is any, I suppose, how can somebody learn more about personal branding? Because for some people this will be quite a new thing for them.
It is. There are books out there. If I can just share, I've just launched a new membership site that is called the Impact Club. And, you know, this has been my way of pivoting and adapting to the new situation, because most of my work was from the stage or delivering workshops. And my purpose is that I believe that this is one of the most powerful tools that you can use in business. You can be technically brilliant at what you do, but unless you embrace this, this is where the real magic happens. But often people can't necessarily don't want to invest or haven't got the time or the funds to invest in coaching. So I wanted to make this work accessible to a wider audience, and also at a time when they needed it. So I've developed the membership club, which is a monthly membership, and by all means it's on my website at deborahogden.com if you want more details. But what that allows is maybe the night before a pitch, the night before a presentation, the night before a Zoom call, you can go on there and actually find the information that you need to really help you move forward. So yeah, have a look at that. But there are some great books out there, and I share a lot of information on LinkedIn and on Instagram if people want to follow me.
So I'm just sorry, I was not being rude and not looking off the screen. It's relevant. I was grabbing your website to pop in the chat for people.
Oh, thank you. That's kind of.
So it makes it easier. So if people have got a question or they want to get in touch and find out a little bit more about you, they can go straight to your website and I suppose make contact that way. There we go. We've got a question. Hey, thank you, Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Hopefully, can you see that, Deborah?
So what people say about you when you're not in the room, would you recommend asking your clients directly? Brilliant question, Alan. And this is what we've been working on in the membership, funnily enough, this morning. So yes, I would. And I would explain, I would think very carefully about the people you choose to ask. I always say don't ask your mum, because you're going to get a very different message. But this is all about that perception piece. So there's the personal brand in your head and the one that's out there. Probably there will be no surprises. I work with people when I'm coaching and we do 360 feedback, and the more people you can ask, the better, because that allows you a more objective point of view, and you can pick out the themes then of what people are saying about you. 95% of feedback will be positive, but the gold dust is in the areas where you can learn something new, and we all have these blind spots. So really great to ask people. A little tip here I would say is ask them, don't say to them, what's my personal brand? Ask them what words they think about when they think about you, but ask them, if there was one thing I could change about my impact and my personal brand, what would it be? Now be prepared, because you have invited that feedback, but that might be the best piece of feedback that you ever get, because once you know, you can make a decision about it. You can decide to do something about it, or you can decide to not do something about it but live with the consequences. But great question, Alan. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. I just cringed a little bit there about thinking if I asked my mum that very question, I'd go, oh, what would she say?
Well, your mum tends to say all the great things, doesn't she? Or my mum does. But, you know, she's my biggest cheerleader. But it's about picking the right people that will be objective, and also understand your goals and outcomes as well. They need to know the context of why you're asking.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's a great answer. Are there any more questions? Thank you, Alan. I suppose we give you a couple of seconds to type a question in, otherwise we'll close it out there. I've kind of covered everything, Deborah. Brilliant. Yeah, any closing things from you? Any final statements?
Oh, we've got one more. Oh, no. Oh, thank you, Michael. No, I think the only thing I would say is, you know, there is a temptation at the moment for people to hide, and maybe at the start that was okay, but it isn't any longer. And if you are unsure about presenting online, getting your brand out there online. Then take baby steps. I believe in stepping out of your comfort zone. I believe in growth, but I believe in doing it in small nudges. Get some small wins. So it might be that you just, you know, you write a blog and you put it onto LinkedIn this week. That is absolutely a win. And then next week you might decide to share some video content, or you might get somebody to interview you. Sometimes that's easier than doing your own video content. But just recognize the different areas that you want to work on and just work through them slowly and get out there, and just make sure, as I said before, that people know exactly what you stand for and that you are the expert in your field.
Thank you very, very much, Deborah. Thank you for the delegates, thank you for the panelists, and thank you more importantly, Deborah. And obviously, you've probably seen the dog in the background, so thank you, Blue, for not being upside down and showing the best that couldn't. We have just a quick plug for the rest of the week. We have seminars running throughout the week. We have 2 more today, one at 2 o'clock. We have a lady called Amy Russell who's going to be talking all about how to use your tools and apps and remote working, that kind of stuff, making things easier. And then at 4 o'clock, we've got a marketing expert who's going to be talking about marketing strategy and how you can get the most out of the COVID times. So please do tune in for that. And I suppose that's it. Thank you very, very much.
See you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
bye.
everybody. Bye.